I signed up for one of those bride websites. The clippers stopped mid-fade. Marcus didn't even look up from the mirror. He just said it, casual, calm, like he was ordering coffee. But the room exploded. Bro, what? Man, you for real? Ain't no woman want no broke farmer with 2 kids and mashed peas on his hoodie. The whole barbershop roared. Marcus forced a chuckle, trying to play it cool. But inside it stung. Not because it wasn't funny, but because it wasn't entirely false. He was a widower. 35. Raising 2 kids on his own while managing a small chicken farm that barely paid the bills. He hadn't been on a date in 4 years, and the only women who ever looked at him in town either pitied him or judged him. So yeah, he'd signed up. Late one night, after putting the kids to bed and cleaning up spilled juice with a tired sigh, he'd written a profile. Not because he wanted someone to clean or cook, but because he was tired of silence. Tired of fighting every battle alone. The laughing didn't bother him. What bothered him was how many of those men had wives, and not one of them looked happy going home. That night, after the kids were asleep, one curled up with a dinosaur plushie, the other still clutching a half-eaten cookie, Marcus sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, flickering under the dim light. The form blinked back at him. Describe yourself. He stared at the screen, fingers hovering over the keys. For a second, he thought about lying, making himself sound bigger, better, more polished. But instead, he wrote the truth. My name's Marcus. I'm a single father of 2. I own a small farm. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. I'm not rich. I'm not perfect. I've lost before, and I've learned how to rebuild. I wake up early. I pray over my kids. And at the end of the day, all I want is peace, laughter, and someone who sees me, not what I can give. If you're looking for diamonds, I don't have them. But if you want loyalty, warmth, and a man who shows up every day, then maybe I'm not such a long shot. He read it twice. No fancy words. No photoshopped pictures. Just him in flannel, holding his daughter on his hip, and his son clinging to his leg. Then he hit send, and whispered under his breath, God, if you're still listening, just let this find the right one. Thousands of miles away in Manila, Lena sat in the corner of a crowded nurse's dorm, earbuds in, scrolling through the flood of profile requests like she did every week. Most were shallow. Poses with cars. Empty promises. Big talk from small men. But one message stopped her. It didn't scream for attention. It didn't offer anything shiny. It just told the truth. She clicked Marcus's profile and reread his words 3 times. Something about them, about him, reminded her of her father. A quiet, hard-working man who used to bring home fruit in his lunchbox for her and her sister. Who had died in a hospital bed 2 years ago while Lena worked a double shift just 2 floors above, too busy to say goodbye. She clicked through Marcus's photos. His daughter's curls. His son's crooked little grin. The chipped mug on the kitchen counter. The cracked screen door. There was no performance here. No filter. Just a man who was trying his damn best. She didn't feel butterflies. She felt stillness. And for someone who had spent her whole life moving, serving, and sacrificing, that stillness felt like something worth chasing. So she typed 4 words. I see your heart. And hit send. Marcus stood just outside the arrival's gate, nervously adjusting the collar of his only good shirt. His daughter clung to his leg, chewing on a toy giraffe, while his son kept asking, Is she gonna be pretty like TV girls? He didn't answer. He didn't know what to expect. And then she walked through the doors. Lena. Petite. Calm. Hair tied back. A worn brown suitcase in one hand, a small backpack slung over her shoulder. She wore no makeup. No jewelry. Just quiet eyes and an expression that said I've seen hard days, but I'm still here. They locked eyes, and neither smiled at first. He stepped forward awkwardly. Lena? She nodded. You must be Marcus. And that was it. No running hug. No cheesy spark. Just two tired souls staring at each other in the middle of a crowded terminal, wondering what came next. The drive back was quiet. The kids fidgeted in the back seat. Lena stared out the window, taking in the empty roads and endless fields. When they arrived at the farmhouse, Marcus apologized. "It's not much." She looked around, the peeling paint, the rusted swing set, the screen door hanging loose. And she said the first thing that made him look up. "It's more than I've ever had." That night she tucked the kids in after only knowing them for a few hours. She didn't force it. She just sat beside them, humming softly in her native tongue. And for the first time in years, Marcus didn't fall asleep alone in silence. He fell asleep to the sound of someone breathing in the room next door. By the end of the first week, the town had something new to talk about, and they didn't whisper quietly. "She don't speak much, huh? Probably don't know English. He had to buy a woman to stay, what's that say about him? Bet she's gone once that green card clears." At the grocery store, the cashier scanned Lena's items slower than usual. At church, a few women offered fake smiles, followed by cold shoulders. Even the mailman, who used to joke with Marcus at the gate, suddenly forgot how to make eye contact. Marcus heard it all. So did Lena. One afternoon, as they walked out of the hardware store, a group of men leaned against the truck and said loud enough for them to hear, "Guess our boy Marcus finally figured out how to get a woman who can't say no." Lena flinched, but didn't stop walking. Marcus turned red with quiet rage, but she just touched his arm and whispered, "They only laugh because they're empty inside." He wanted to protect her. To shout back. To fight. But Lena didn't need a man to throw fists. She needed one to stand still. So he did. He stood beside her, through the sideways glances, the cruel jokes, the fake pity. Because while the town questioned how much she cost, he was starting to realize just how much she was worth. It happened on a Tuesday. Marcus had gone to fix the fencing in the north field. Lena stayed behind with the kids, planning to do laundry and maybe teach the little one how to fold socks. But a cry rang out from the yard. Sharp. Scared. Marcus's daughter, Amara, had fallen off the swing, knee split open, crying so hard her tiny body shook. By the time Marcus ran back to the house, out of breath and panicked, he stopped cold on the porch. Because there was Lena, kneeling calmly on the kitchen floor, with Amara in her lap. A dish towel wrapped gently around the wound. Her voice low, steady, singing something in Tagalog that neither of them understood, but somehow, it soothed the child. Amara's sobs softened. Her fingers curled into Lena's shirt. And Marcus just watched, jaw tight, heart pulled in a way he hadn't felt in years. That night, as he tucked his daughter in, she whispered, "Can she stay? I like her singing better than cartoons." And later, when he passed by the living room, he saw his son fast asleep on the couch, his head on Lena's lap, her hand resting lightly on his curls. She didn't ask to be their mom. She didn't force affection. She just showed up moment by moment, with a kind of love that didn't shout, it stayed. It came in a plain white envelope. No return address. Just Lena's name, scribbled in shaky block letters. She found it wedged in the screen door one morning while Marcus was out with the kids. No stamp, no delivery markings. Someone had placed it there by hand. She opened it slowly, heart already tightening. "You don't belong here. We don't need imported women taking advantage of weak men. Leave before you ruin what little he has left." No signature. Just venom on paper. Lena stood frozen in the kitchen, fingers trembling. She read it 3 times, trying to convince herself it was just hate from a stranger. But it felt too personal. Too intentional. She didn't show Marcus. Didn't want to add one more burden to the pile on his back. Instead, she quietly slipped the letter into the trash, walked into the guest room, and pulled her suitcase from under the bed. She started folding clothes that night. No goodbye. No drama. Just quiet movements from a woman who had survived too much rejection to cling to a place that didn't want her. But what Lena didn't know was that Marcus had seen the letter too. And he wasn't about to let history repeat itself. The next morning, Marcus came back from feeding the hens to find Lena at the doorway, suitcase upright, her back to him. She hadn't made breakfast. The coffee wasn't brewing. The house was too still. He stood there for a second, muddy boots on hardwood, watching the woman who had stitched his daughter's knee, sung his son to sleep, and quietly mended parts of this home no one could see. "You weren't even gonna say goodbye?" he finally asked. Lena froze. Then, quietly, "I wasn't your wife. I'm not your problem." He stepped closer, voice low but firm. "You think I brought you here because I needed help with dishes?" She turned to him, eyes already glassy. "I read the letter. I've seen the looks. I don't want to be the reason your life gets harder." Marcus stepped forward, jaw tight. "You're not the reason. You're the reason I sleep at night again. The reason this house doesn't echo. The reason my kids laugh like they used to." Lena looked away, trying to hold back the tears. "This was supposed to be temporary." "I know," he said. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded note. It was the same letter, the hateful one, but beneath it, he'd written in thick black marker. "They don't know you. But I do." He held it out to her. "Let them talk. But you and me? This," he pointed to her suitcase, then to his chest, "this doesn't end here. Not unless you want it to." Lena stared at the paper. Then, wordlessly, she stepped away from the door and back into the home. Her suitcase never moved again. Sunday came. Church service, packed pews, murmurs louder than hymns. Everyone was there, neighbors who'd once brought casseroles after his wife passed, the same ones now whispering behind folded bulletins. Marcus sat next to Lena, one hand resting gently over hers. She wore her best blouse and a brave smile. The kids sat between them, quiet and wide-eyed. The sermon had barely begun when Pastor Will asked, "Does anyone have a testimony they'd like to share today?" Nobody moved. Then Marcus stood. He walked slowly to the front, boots echoing on the wooden floor. Whispers rose like steam behind him. He cleared his throat. "I wasn't planning on saying anything," he began, voice steady. "But I think it's time I stop letting other folks tell my story for me." A few heads turned. Some leaned in. Others stiffened. "You all know me. You know I've been raising 2 kids alone since my wife passed. You've seen me at the store, the feed shop, and yeah, maybe some of y'all laughed when you heard I signed up for a mail-order bride." A few chuckles. A few glares. He nodded. "That's fine. I can take a joke. What I won't take is silence while people disrespect the woman who came into my life and gave my kids back their laughter." He glanced at Lena, her eyes locked on his, brimming. "She didn't come here for money. She didn't come for a green card. She came because something in her heart said try anyway. She's braver than anyone in this room." The church was silent now. Marcus looked around slowly. "If you can't respect her, you're not welcome on my land. If you think love has a color or a price tag, you don't know what love is." He walked back down the aisle, sat beside Lena, and gently laced his fingers with hers. No applause. No altar calls. Just truth, ringing louder than any sermon. Later that night, after church, the house was quiet. The kids were in pajamas, bellies full from Lena's homemade stew, something warm and garlicky that reminded Marcus of comfort he hadn't felt in years. As he washed the dishes, he heard giggling from the living room. He peeked in and saw Lena on the floor, helping Amara braid her doll's hair, while little Jaden tried to copy her technique on the couch cushion, making a mess, but smiling like he hadn't in months. Then Jaden looked up suddenly, out of nowhere, and asked, "Can I call you Mommy now?" Lena froze. So did Marcus, plate still in hand, water running. She turned eyes wide. Not with fear, but with something deeper. A crack in the wall she'd kept up since the day she arrived. Jaden tilted his head. "You take care of us. You're nice. You sing like Mommy used to." Lena's lips parted, and for the first time since setting foot in this country, her voice trembled. "If it's okay with your daddy, then yes. I'd like that. Marcus didn't say a word. He didn't have to. He just nodded, a quiet smile tugging at the corner of his mouth, as if something sacred had just settled into place. Not forced. Not rushed. Just right. That night, as Lena tucked both kids into bed, Marcus realized something. She wasn't a guest anymore. She was home. 3 months later, they sat side by side in a gray office under flickering fluorescent lights. The immigration officer didn't smile. He didn't even look up for the first 5 minutes, just shuffled papers, tapped a pen, then finally asked without emotion. How did you meet? Marcus cleared his throat. Online profile. I was honest about my situation. The officer raised an eyebrow. You paid for her to come? Lena straightened. He paid for the agency. Not for me. The officer scribbled something. And you fell in love. Just like that? Lena opened her mouth, but Marcus spoke first. No. Not just like that. It wasn't love at first sight. The officer looked up, surprised. Marcus leaned forward, voice calm but firm. It was love after long days. After late-night dinners with 2 tired kids. After storms, and blisters, and little moments that no form or photo can explain. Lena smiled softly, eyes on her lap. The officer blinked, silent for a beat. Then flipped to the next page. What's his favorite breakfast? He asked Lena suddenly. Fried eggs. 3. Always 3. And coffee black. No sugar unless he's stressed. He turned to Marcus. Her favorite movie? He chuckled. She claims it's The Notebook, but I've caught her rewatching Mulan more times than she'll admit. The officer nodded slowly. Didn't say they passed. Didn't say they failed. But when they walked out of that building, holding hands, heads high, neither of them cared. Because no piece of paper could measure the family they'd become. The doorbell above the barber shop gave its usual half-hearted ding as Marcus walked in, holding Jaden's hand and carrying Amara on his shoulders. The place went quiet. Not because they didn't recognize him, but because they did. Clean-cut, clean-shirted Marcus. Confident. Calm. Not the tired, quiet man they used to poke fun at. Behind the glass, Lena waited in the truck, windows down, her braid blowing in the wind as she smiled at something Amara had drawn in the back seat. Jaden ran to the waiting chairs with a handful of toy dinosaurs. Amara giggled, asking if she could get pink beads in her hair next time. And Marcus? He just stood at the counter, waiting for his turn. No jokes this time. No wisecracks about imported love. No sideways glances. Just silence. Until the barber, same one who once led the laughs, cleared his throat and muttered, How's the missus? Marcus looked him straight in the eye, then smiled. Happy, he said. We all are. He sat in the chair, his kids laughing in the corner, the room heavy with unspoken respect. And for the first time in years, no one in that barber shop had a damn thing to say.